Meeting recording has started.
Hi, I want to show you a demonstration of extensions in Virtual Agent Studio. So this is Virtual Agent Studio. This is kind of my main dashboard. I can create agents or I can go to agents I've created. And here's an agent I created. I call it SMS. SMS has one flow, which I've called main. So let's open main. Main has one intent in its NLU, its natural language understanding section, and that is send SMS. And I trained this intent with a variety of different sentences. I want to send a text, send an SMS message, please send SMS. So if the flow detects any of these, sentences or variations, it will then categorize this as the send SMS intent. So let's go back here. So if it encounters the send SMS intent, it will take this path. If it doesn't, this is a very simple workflow. It'll just do nothing and then end. So if it determines that this is a send SMS, then it will ask for a message body. And it will take that message body, it will take that answer, and it will store it in the input context. If I come over here, then we have this extension that I wrote called send SMS text. Send SMS text uses Avaya CPass under the covers to send the text message using the SMS gateway. But I don't want to expose any of that to the user. I want to keep that hidden, and I'll show you how that happens. So if I open up the send SMS node, this is an extension, you'll see it has a few things in here. One of them, it has a connection, and a connection are the credentials that allow me to access my Avaya CPass account, get permission to send that text message. I need to be an authorized user. So those credentials are actually hidden from the user. If I do an edit, you will see that it requires an account SID and an authorization token, but you cannot see those. You can only update those. So I've built this connection, and from now on, it's secure. Nobody can look at the values that I've used for my password and my user ID. And I can create multiple connections, so I can use this same extension with lots of different accounts with different connections. And this one I've named Andrew after my account. Then there's a message body, and it uses last question result, which came from this question here, ask for the message body. And then I've hard coded a couple of phone numbers, and I could have pulled these from a database, or I could have asked the user, or I could have pulled them from any number of different places, but I've just stuck them in here. The point is that you can configure this task any which way you want. And then lastly, I have storage options. Once I get the answer back from the send SMS API, what do I want to do with it? In this case, I can say I want to put it into the input context, or I can put it into the context. So input is sort of transitory for this dialogue. Context allows it to be available for the rest of the workflow, and I'll store it into the context, and I'll store it under this key SMS result. So let's save this. Let's come over here and start up the test node. Okay. And so I can ask a question, or I can, start it off with, I want to send a text. What is the message you want to send? So this came from the question. And I said, well, I want to send, hi from via virtual agent studio. Now, when I enter this into the system, it will then go immediately to the send SMS text node. Okay. It's executing it. Momentarily, I should get a text message on my phone. Okay, I just did. You didn't hear that because my phone is actually asleep right now, but it's there. If I go over to the info section, we can click on the context, and here is the result of the API call. And I've just dumped the entire result in from the Avaya CPass API call, and it returns back what was the body, and there's the body that I used. The status is queued. At this point, it was queued for sending as an outbound API. It lists the from, who's it from, who's it to, and then some various other information about the text message. Um, and so I can use this information within the workflow afterwards. So if I want to access this data, then I can say context.sms underscore result dot status dot direction dot price dot whatever. I can get access to that information and bring that into the workflow. Now, this workflow here with the send SMS, again, it sends a text message, but I could have done anything. This could have been integration to a CRM. This could have been anything that is currently not supported in Virtual Agent Studio, but I want to write as an extension that looks like all the other things that I can do with Virtual Agent Studio. So if I want to add another node, I can add, my says or my questions or lookups or things like that. But I can also go to the extension section and I can find my extension, or I can add other extensions and add those into the into the flow. So let's go over here back to Virtual Agent Studio and go to Manage, go to Extensions. So I've loaded this extension. This is my extension that I've loaded into the system. If I click on it, we'll see information about it. There's the author, that's me. That's my keyword. I put in there SMS. I put a little description. You'll see down here, if I scroll down here, that it has a connection, and it's a connection type of SMS connection, and then has a name, and then there's the particular node or the workflow that it's used in, and it's used in my SMS workflow at this point in time. So let's go a little bit deeper. So let's actually bring up the source code. Now, there are three modules, important modules, when I built this extension. This is the main module, sms.ts. Okay, so this is the actual workflow of this is the thing that does all the logic, that sends the text message. And I'll go into a little bit of detail in just a moment. There's a connection object, connection.ts. This is used for that connection with my account SID and my auth token. And then there's this thing called module TS, and it brings everything together. So when you create an extension, I'm adding the node, which is my SMS node over here, and the connection, bringing those together into a single entity, which is what you saw in the workflow. If I go to sms.ts, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this SMS node right there. And that was the thing that I loaded into, again, to the system. Up top, I defined the fields of that node. And so remember, we had the connection, and then there was the message body, there was the destination, there was the source, and there was information about the storage, whether we want to store it in the input or the output context. I put the storage information into a section that allowed me to have that little drop down arrow, so it didn't actually populate all that information, just sort of into the task, one after the other after the other. It allowed me to have the drop down and then select, where I want to store the connection information and what do I want to call it, the input key or the context key. So where's the store location, input or context, and what is the key for the input, what is the key for the context. And I lay all that out. And then finally, there's the actual execution code itself. So I define an async function. And then here is the API call into Avaya CPaaS. You'll notice there's no hard-coded anything in here because I'm taking the connection SID. I'm using that when I build my basic auth, the connection SID and my auth token is that statement up here. The source and the destination are coming from the task itself. So when the task is invoked, I get the information that was configured in the node, and then I execute the REST call. And then when I get the results, I say, well, do I want to put it into the context or do I want to put it into the input? So either add to the context or I add to the input, and I add it to the keys that were, I put it into those keys that I defined earlier when I configured the system. And then if there is an error, this is surrounded by a try catch. If there's an error, then I put nulls for my input context or my context. So that's pretty much it. Let's go back one more time to this guy. So again, when I build this extension, I write the code, I upload it. So if I want to replace it, I would upload it with the tar.ts .gz file, which is that's all that source code plus a few other things, an icon, and then a package.json, all kind of bundled together. I'm uploading a new version. I'm replacing the current version. The beauty is that this code is now hosted by Avaya Virtual Agent Studio. So I don't need to have a separate Linux server. I don't need to use an AWS Lambda function or a Google Cloud function or an Azure function. It is hosted by the Virtual Agent Studio product. So this is a pure cloud solution. Everything is contained in the cloud itself. Now, the thing you're talking to in the extension, it can be anything you want, but the integration code is all hosted inside of Virtual Agent Studio. And now I've just successfully updated the extension. So that's it. I hope this makes some sense, and I hope you have a deeper appreciation of extensions in via Virtual Agent Studio. Thanks for watching.